Hello and welcome to Awaken Your Human Design. My name is Moni. This is Danny. And for the week of September 3rd through the 8th, the sun is in gate 64 and the earth in gate 63.
It's the perfect movement from where we just left off, and consciousness begins and ends here.
Cool. Well, Thank you to everyone who's watching and liking and subscribing and commenting. Thanks for being here with us, and let's get into it. Here we have our mandala view where we have the sun in gate 64, which is confusion, and it's a head center gate. And then we have the earth in gate 63, which is doubt, and it's also a head center gate.
And the interesting story of how doubt and confusion leads to our consciousness, we'll start to get into when we talk about the gates.
Here we have the sun in gate 64, which is before completion and the gate of confusion. Transition, like birth, requires a determined strength for the passage through. Gate 64 is a head center gate, part of collective circuitry, so sharing is our keynote, and it's part of the sensing circuit specifically. Gate 64 links up with gate 47, which is realization, and the 64-47 make up the channel of abstraction. Accepting confusion as the state before order is established as part of the process and attempting to make sense of the constant flow of data, which continually recycles within the mind. In order to enjoy the mental state of confusion and not become overwhelmed, let clips of the past experiences simply stream through until the message of the movie becomes clear.
Yeah, this is that beautiful story of the editor and all the film clips, and gate 47 becomes that editor, which I believe is the next gate after this one. So the pressure to be confused, and the head center is this place where the keynote of it is to translate existence. The head center pressures us, one of two pressure centers, that and the root, and it pressures us to translate the meaning of our existence, to translate existence, all the way around. And this whole transition business, transition belongs in plenty of other gates, but it's listed here. It's listed here because the transition is from the confusion, which is untranslated existence, into realization, which is the translation of a small piece of it, adding to the full tapestry. And this is why consciousness, piece by piece by piece, and when we get to doubt, you'll see it has its own function, but piece by piece by piece, we add up what then becomes humans' consciousness, our capacity to realize the same things at the same time, our capacity to create a consciousness field across the whole planet, our beautiful capacity to recognize, there is myself and there is that which is much greater, and it's both. And then at the end of the day, the consciousness that is so prevalent in how much we use language to discuss every little thing. I mean, language creates, it doesn't just speak. If you use enough of the same language, next thing you know, you're building a building, where we can house a lot of consciousness. And every walking human unit is got their contribution to make into the consciousness field, whether they've got gate 64 or not. It's just that gate 64 is in the world, and it guarantees us that we will remain confused. It never lets the user alone. This is the gate of potentially endless doom scrolling. This is the gate that pressures the dreaming for the dream rave, and that thing that we don't spend a lot of time on, but a third of our life is spent there sleeping. 64 says, I don't know what I'm confused about, but the pressure to confuse is, and think of the word, confuse, against fusion, not together, not as a thing yet. We want to get rid of the con, and that's what gate 47 does for us. It fuses. And so it's there in the word. So confusion is the pressure to continually think about these abstract things that don't necessarily have a ton of meaning separately until the conceptualizing factory of the ajna through gate 47, a gate named oppression, comes through, and it deals with the oppressive confusion and allows this transition through the confusion and the lack of translation into a translation. The transition from untranslated confusion into translated fusion. I mean, that's the transition that happens here. And it does require determined strength. And it also requires friction. That's the thing. If there's no friction, there can be no determined struggle to get through the birth canal. If there's no friction on a birth canal, what happens to the baby? Oh, I had a baby a minute ago. You know, well, when did you go into labor? The minute before that, that if there's no friction, that's what we get. And then we have no determined strength requirements. There is no transition. Friction is also required to go along with this determined strength. And that friction is akin to this confusion. And it's a pressure that won't leave you alone. And if you have this whole channel, stop letting people say you think too much. If you've got any of the channels between the head and the ajna, don't let people tell you you think too much. It's not true. You're constantly thinking, and stuff is constantly going through your head. And if you got this channel, I have this channel. It's an endless stream of abstract stuff that has me picking up a phone to text someone or to do this or to do that. Usually it's to write something down or to sit at my piano and play something, or to figure out something, or to suddenly realize something. And as soon as I realize it, half the time it's gone after that. Into the consciousness field it goes. So gate 64 is a primary prodding agent to prod human consciousness and our nine-centered selves towards our own betterment, really, towards our own greatness, which we're supposed to realize sooner or later. So I hope we get about the business of realizing it already.
I have etymology on confuse.
Oh, what do you got?
Yeah. So it comes from a Latin root, confundere, which literally means to pour together, but figuratively came to mean to mix up, to jumble, to disorder, to perplex. So the Latin root confundere is a combination of com, C-O-M, which means together, and fundere is to pour.
Wow.
So it's together mixing.
Wow, it's exactly the opposite of what I was saying.
Yeah, which is really cute.
Yeah,
but,
that's funny. Well, I'm glad you looked it up. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, and it's fun too, but it does totally work with 64 because it's like
it's
this mixing up of like images.
Nonsense.
Yeah, like
But
I always
not at the same time.
Yeah, it's like the way I understand 64 and like 47 as a channel is like 64 is just like clips that are coming through, and then the 47 is the editor that's putting them together into like a storyboard that makes sense. So this idea of pouring together, this mixing together of these different clips and images and whatever's coming through in that abstract storytelling pressure to ask questions and think about stuff kind of way.
And it gives credence to the whole notion of this is a transition. And that pouring together, I mean, so if 64 is the abstract and all of the things pouring in and constantly hitting you with this thing and that thing, 47 is the thing that takes it all literally and allows itself to basically turn it into something. Well, to literally turn it into something. And the end user, the person who has that channel, knows this sensation because they constantly come against these life-changing realizations that half the time they don't do anything about. The other half the time they said, I wish I had someone following me around taking notes of all the things I say, because about 10% of them are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're right. Again, part of the consciousness field. And so confusion creates greater consciousness. An alligator isn't very confused about much. I mean, say I'm wrong, they're not right. They're not very confused. Neither are most lions, or whatever. We are. We allow ourselves, and in that allowance, we separate from the unconscious state of and world and things and animals into a consciousness field. And that energy pouring out of us through our aura, millions of, billions of auras throughout the world, creates a tic-tac-toe, a fabric. And we call that consciousness. But it's not set. The consciousness is not complete. This is just one side of it. We need dad. Or not dad. We need the next part. Because one could argue this is dad, which we're about to get on the next slide.
Next up, we have the Earth in gate 63, which is after completion and the gate of doubt. In the spiral of life, all ends are beginnings. Gate 63 is a head center gate, part of collective circuitry, so sharing is our keynote, and it's part of the understanding circuit specifically. Gate 63 hooks up with gate 4, which is formalization, and the 63-4 make up the channel of logic. Gate 63 is suspicion and doubt, but merely as a pressure, and the readiness to pay attention to and question what feels insecure until it can be understood and evaluated for future security. The focus is the future and the ability to see patterns existing in the present. If something appears weak or does not ensure society's future, you will reject it.
So if gate 64 is concerned with the past, it's basically 64 feeds into, it all feeds into that abstract circuitry that ultimately goes to gate 13 and manifests through 33. If gate 64 is that, 63 is the future forward-looking logical part of thing. One is simply sensing the confusion and doing something with it, and the other is understanding the not so abstract and being willing to doubt. So I like I said, let's turn it around and call this mom. Dad's confused somehow or other and doing all that stuff. And mom comes in and says, no, it's got to be this way. You know what I mean? Essentially, the doubts get assuaged through the act of experimentation and identifying what's worth experimenting with. And the formulas that are needed are the natural outpouring of this piece of consciousness. So consciousness is not simply an etheric thing that falls into spiritual land that we can't quite put our finger on. It's got a foundational, solid thing that says, I doubt this particular thing and I need a formula for it. So creating formulas as the consequence of doubt is part of our consciousness field. If we're going to be confused and have realizations, we need another thing that's the opposite of abstract to be part of that sort of yin and yang. This is a perfect yin and yang going back and forth. And it's 2/3 of the head center after all. We won't even talk about 61. That's just totally different, but the spiral of life where all ends are beginnings, the confusion is in the middle. It's the before completion stuff. And the ends of that confusion become the beginnings of the logic. And when the logic is in place, the confusion goes right back to work and is now before completion because the ends that logically the formula came to has to deal with new beginnings because there's a confusion factory showing up to like help confuse things a little bit. Basically, confusion is like mixing it all up so you get to do it over again a little better. The logical side of gate 63 with its doubts say, I don't know if we're going to do it this way or that way when we do it all over again. And its capacity to pressure the body to hold still in doubt and not make the move until there's some kind of formalization going there. If it goes overboard, this person can doubt everything. They can even doubt their own aspect as part of the consciousness field on planet Earth. But generally, in a being who is themselves mostly, the doubt simply passes through, just like the confusion. It simply is there to pass through, and gate 4 is simply there to say, I heard you. Hang on, let me get to work on that. And it starts conceptualizing the formula. So this gate will make you keep thinking too. If you have this whole channel, especially, you're constantly, thinking about how this might work better, how that might work better, with an eye towards how will that work better into the future. Whereas confusion is just trying to settle up old scores from the past. It's like, well, I got this and I put this with that. And if I put that with that, then that means this was meant that. And then doubt says, I think you're right. And now it means that. So that's gate 63 in a nutshell.
Next up, we have our incarnation crosses for the week. First up, we have the right angle cross of consciousness, which adds the 35 and the 5 to the 64 and 63 we've been discussing. These are people who inspire and assist others in making sense of their past by testing experience against accepted patterns, thus progressing toward new ways of thinking about and understanding life. Then we'll move into the juxtaposition cross of confusion, which adds the 45 and the 26. These are inspiring historians, founts of information, whose remembering is rooted in tribal hierarchies and subject to the ego's interpretation and manipulation. Finally, we'll move into the left angle cross of dominion, which also adds the 45 and 26. These are people whose interpretation of the past can be impactful, using information to assume positions of power or authority.
Yeah, and so if you think about consciousness, It's the natural outpouring of what happens after, like I said on the last one, what happens after the community is working. Only from within a working tribe and a working community can you feel safe enough to indulge in consciousness. Or if otherwise, you're involved primarily in survival. Whatever that would mean, to your existence at that time. So to then go to a juxtaposition that says, I simply confuse, and the thing is 45 and 26 coming up are saying, not only do I confuse, but after I get clear on all of that, which comes up in Dominion, we then become the cross of rulership, another tribal thing. And notice it even mentions tribalness because we just came off of a very important tribal channel that was in the opposition. And that one was with gate 40 and 37. So, tribal family, what does it all mean? Consciousness into dominion, which is so important because you take dominion of that, and then that sets up and informs in a nine-centered world this process in the wheel, these three gates. We just left gate 40, and then we moved to gate 64, and the next one will be 47. So as we move into that, 47 becomes, this is the part of rulership that says, I must get through the abstract nature of what was community and how it aided our consciousness before I can understand and have the grace to be on the cross of rulership. Now, that process hasn't taken place on Earth very often yet, but I have high hopes for it. So, I mean, that's what dominion is for. It's a natural outpouring. One doesn't normally think of dominion as a natural outpouring of consciousness. But the dominion is the dominion over the confusion, over now sort of the lack of it, or not debilitatingness of the confusion anymore. And that could inform many things. That could have gone into any cross, but it goes into rulership. We want our rulers less confused. Confused rulers deal in power and money and stuff like that, right? And keeping power. That's confusing. That's confusing to the nine-centered being, and that's not how we are. That's not what we're meant to do. We're meant to allow the affection to drive the work, to allow us to move through this cross of consciousness and then suddenly know how to rule. Think about it. If you just look at this as a yin and a yang before we get to rulership, family, yin, confusion, and consciousness, yang, and we put them together, and now we've informed the next order of rulership. So rulership need not have that iron fist and that old seven-centered way of killing everything as part of rulership and controlling it all, which we've seen, in the past 5 or 6 years. Rulership trying to control this, do that. How about no? I'm not confused about no anymore. Do you see why we needed this? The consciousness field had to get together and say no. And we're not confused about that. And I don't have any doubts about that either. Because at some point the confusion and the doubt stops and the consciousness gets clear and the conscience is clear and we say no to certain things. I mean, I bet everyone listening here can think of things they said, heck no, not on my watch, to certain things we were being told we have to do or have to not do or whatever. So this makes a very logical pattern, very logical pattern. If the idea is please humanity, up your game, up level your workings, and let's get to the right kind of rulership through consciousness, through planning, through community, through migration, through dominion, and on to that, because actually after that comes the vessel of love again. So rulership better get its act together, or the vessel will strike it down. Basically, it'll do what the priest can do to anything. It'll say no. So once again, the movement makes perfect sense, Moni.
Well, it seems to always do that.
Seems to always do that. I don't know what that is, man.
It do be like that sometimes.
It do be like that.
Finally, we have our hexagrams for the week. First up, we have the sun in gate 64, which is confusion, or in my I Ching book, it reads as not yet across.
Not yet what?
Across. Like
Wow.
it hasn't crossed over yet.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
Transition.
Yeah, yeah.
Transition.
And the trigrams are fire over water. The image reads, fire dwells above the stream, not yet across. A noble one carefully differentiates between beings, so each finds its place. There is fire and there is water, the right elements to cook with, but in the wrong places relative to one another. The next task is to find better places for things so they can work together coherently. A noble one uses the qualities of fire above and stream below. A careful, respectful awareness of the undercurrents, like the acute eyes and ears of the fox attuned to the river's flow beneath the ice. She will develop her understanding of how the different elements and processes in a complex situation fit together and find ways for people to relate more harmoniously.
That's what confusion does. I mean, it reads a lot like going through the confusion process, through the oppressiveness of its heaviness, because confusion feels heavy. Unless you know you have the gate, then it's not so heavy anymore. It's just part of a process. And so that's what it sounds like here is we're going through a process because fire over water, I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. If that fire falls into the water, it goes out. I mean, to me,
Yeah,
it's so, I mean, that's if I saw fire over water, I would be confused.
yeah. I
I'm
mean,
used to
that's gonna be a
seeing the,
bad time because there's like oil or something on top.
yes, yes, I'm used to seeing the fire under the kettle of water and soup or whatever it is.
Well,
So,
that'll be the next one we're getting to.
mm,
So the Earth in gate 63, which is doubt, and this one in my I Ching reads already across. So 64 was not yet across, and 63 is already across. I think that's kind of
where
funny.
it's about to meet a new beginning.
Ooh. And the trigrams are water over fire because it's the exact opposite of 64, which is pretty fun. The image reads, stream dwells above fire, already across. A noble one reflects on distress and prepares to defend against it. Water above the fire is like a pot on the boil, a productive meeting of opposites that will last just as long as you pay attention to both the fire and the water level. So noble one has presence of mind, awareness clear as a flame, within the stream of emotional experience. If you are mindful of anxieties, contemplating them with an open heart, you are well placed to anticipate and ward off trouble.
Don't doubt yourself, my child, is what I'm hearing in all of that.
Hmm.
Doubt for doubt's sake is helpful. And it's simply there to release some of the pressure. The doubt is a valve that releases pressure. And that pressure release is through the sharing of it. Both these gates need to be shared. They're in the collective circuitry. It's a little harder to share your confusion until there's some realization, but it's not so hard to share your doubt without any kind of formula to fix it. The sharing brings it. And sort of what I was hearing you read was basically after you get over, after the transition, the doubt simply starts to assuage itself and become part of a formula until there's need through confusion for yet another new beginning. So to me, these two hexagrams go together.
So, tying it all together, what can we tell our audience to expect and how they can see these energies and play around with them with the sun in gate 64 and the earth in gate 63?
So I know the grounding is in the doubt, and I'll leave that for you to speak to. But to me, the sun in gate 64 simply says that this week is a week for you to literally tune into your higher self and start to translate, what are you doing here? What is it all about? Allow that process, whether you have an open head center or not, whether this gate creates a definition or not. You know, this transit could go by and half the world will still have an open head, you know, because the head's hard to define. There's only 3 ways to define it of all 36 channels. And so tap into your higher self. Literally, that's what consciousness is about. Progress and fixed patterns serves the 64 and the 63, not so much the other way around, especially in this arm of it all where this is the sun and the earth. So, I mean, now's the time to visit the higher purpose things because after all, these two pressures are pressuring the translation of our own existence. So We're logical enough to understand that language. We just use language. Now that I said it, you get to bring it into form. Bring your higher self into form through doubt and confusion. It sounds a little counterintuitive, but it is not. You'll see once you allow. So allow.
Yeah, I'm like open head ajna people, take it easy, give yourself a break. Don't try to figure everything out.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good.
You know, because
Thank you. Yeah, because I have the definition, so I'm always trying to. So you're right. I missed that. How insensitive of me.
No, it's great. I was just separately kind of, as I've been doing a lot of like head and ajna deconditioning recently with different stuff going on, and just acknowledging to myself, it's like, I can't square all the circles. As much as there's that pressure to figure it out and do it and put things in order and do your little puzzles, it's like I've been having these deep realizations that it's like, I can't do it. I can't figure it all out. I can't understand all the ideas and put them in a neat little box. I can't do it. I'm not capable of it. I'm not built that way, and it's not my responsibility. And so I've been learning to allow that and just, oh, I get to take in the ideas. I get to listen to other people's thoughts and ideas. I can listen to podcasts all day, and this person's lecture and this person's this. And before I would try to really like put it in order or try to tell other people or make sense of it all. And now I'm like, I can just listen to it and enjoy it. And then if it comes up, I can share it with somebody. But I'm allowing myself to release that pressure of trying to figure it all out and have all the answers, which has been an interesting experiment and quite pleasant.
Yeah.
So yeah, with this lit up in the sky, I feel like this could be really fun, and like maybe journal some stuff or like, you know, talk about it if you want to, but also if you start feeling a little too and like a spinning your wheels, like it's okay to just not and like let it go and like take a break, and like you don't have to have all the answers to this confusion and doubt that will be coming up. Just let it kind of ride out and play out, and
Yeah.
eventually something will come through.
Having the answers is not a requirement of the confusion and the doubt. Recognizing the process and that it will ultimately, like birth, lead to transition with determined strength for the passage through, right? Ultimately, but like any birth, the first, 12 hours are not having a birth, right? So it's like that. Allow those 12 hours to be not so important, overall. But yep, I mean, my final thing is this is a place for people to really get in touch with a lot of higher self because we don't doubt enough. We don't, doubt's so healthy. It doesn't mean bad. I doubt this thing. Okay, well, the pressure now is to look into it so we can figure out what does it mean or not. You can put it aside, but it's only a week, 6.5 days approximately. Get in touch with your higher self. It's there. Greater meaning far beyond your job and your mortgage payment and whatever, all the stuff. Far beyond that is a greater, higher purpose of you. And you'll see glimpses of it during this week if you allow yourself.
Yeah, like doubt and confusion are just part of the process, and they're not bad things. I like how you said that, because it's just like, oh no, you're doubting, or like, be skeptical or whatever it might be, or like, oh, you're confused. There could be like a negative, I'm bad, or like I should be sure-footed and never confused and know all the things. And it's like, well, no, because that's not realistic. And like confusion is the first step to learning, and allow it to be a step, and that's okay.
Right, exactly. Don't tell me the giant puzzle you just splayed out onto the table to put together isn't confusing. But somehow or other, we end up with a finished puzzle of a Mona Lisa. And she's beautiful, you know.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Danny. Thank you to everyone who is watching and liking, subscribing, commenting, asking questions, doing all the stuff. We love having you. And we'll catch you next week for another transit.
Love you guys. Catch you the next time.